The planet had no name when they found it, just a number in a long list of numbers. Verith 7. That was what the computers called it. To the crew of the starship Callisto Dawn, it was just another stop on a journey that had already taken them 3 years away from Earth. Lieutenant Carla Simmons was tired of rocks. She had joined the Survey Corps because she wanted adventure, because she wanted to see things no human had ever seen before. Instead, she spent most of her days scanning gray stones and taking samples of dirt that all looked the same. The universe, she had learned, was mostly empty, and the parts that were not empty were mostly boring. Vera 7 was supposed to be the same. The initial scans showed volcanic activity, mineral deposits, and nothing else. No life, no water. No reason to stay longer than a few days. The crew had set up their base camp near a ridge of black rock, and Carla had been assigned to survey the eastern sector. She walked alone through the ash fields, her boots leaving prints in the gray dust. The sky above was the color of rust, and the air smelled like sulfur even through her breathing mask. Her scanner beeped softly as it recorded data that no one would probably ever read. It was on her 6th day that she found the cave. She almost missed it. The entrance was hidden behind a wall of crystal formations that had grown up from the volcanic rock. They caught the dim light and scattered it into rainbows, which was the only reason Carla stopped to look. She was reaching out to touch one of the crystals when her scanner made a sound she had never heard before. Thermal signature. Large, alive. Carla froze. Nothing on this planet was supposed to be alive. She checked her scanner again, certain it was a mistake. But the reading was clear. Something warm was inside that cave. Something breathing. She should have called it in. That was what the rules said. Unknown life forms required a full team response, safety protocols, weapons ready. But Carla had spent 3 years following rules, and she was tired of it. She pulled out her light and stepped through the crystal curtain. The cave was small, no bigger than her quarters on the ship. The walls were smooth, melted by ancient heat, and then cooled into glass. And in the center of that small space, curled up on a bed of ash, was the most beautiful creature Carla had ever seen. It was like a dragon from the old stories. That was her first thought. Scales covered its body, shifting colors between deep purple and black as the light from her torch moved across them. It had wings, folded tight against its sides, and the long tail wrapped around its body like a child holding itself for comfort. It was about the size of a large dog, maybe a little bigger, and it was dying. Carla could see that right away. Its breathing was too shallow, too fast. Its scales had a dull look to them, like metal that had lost its shine. Around it, scattered across the cave floor, were the broken pieces of what looked like eggs. Big eggs, the size of basketballs, now just empty shells. Siblings. The word came to her without thinking. This creature had hatched with brothers and sisters, and now they were all dead. Only this one remained. The creature opened its eyes. Carla had expected animal eyes. The eyes of a lizard or a snake, cold and simple. But these eyes were nothing like that. They were gold, flecked with darker spots that seemed to move and shift. And they were intelligent. More intelligent than any animal had a right to be. They looked at Carla not with fear or hunger, but with something like recognition. Like the creature had been waiting for someone to come, and now, finally, someone had. Carla sat down. She did not think about it. She did not weigh the risks or consider the protocols. She simply sat down on the cave floor, across from the dying dragon child, and began to unpack her bag. First, she pulled out her emergency thermal blanket. It was designed to keep a human warm in extreme cold, but it worked just as well for holding in heat. She spread it carefully over the creature, tucking it around the small body without touching the scales directly. The creature watched her, but did not move. Next, she took out her water purifier. It was a small device, meant to make any liquid safe to drink. She filled it from her canteen and set it to produce a slow, steady drip. Then she held it near the creature's mouth and let the water fall, drop by drop, onto its tongue. The creature drank. It was such a small thing, but it made Carla's heart jump. The creature was responding. It wanted to live. That meant she had a chance to save it. She worked through the night. Her scanner became a vital signs monitor, tracking the creature's heartbeat and temperature. Her portable heater kept the cave warm when the planet's long night brought freezing cold. She broke her ration bars into tiny pieces and tried to feed them to the creature, though it only ate a few bites before turning its head away. At some point, she activated her emergency beacon, not to call for help with a dangerous situation, but because she knew she would need supplies, water, food, medical equipment, things she did not have. The dragon child watched her through all of it. Those golden eyes followed her movements as she worked, as she arranged her tools in a circle around them, as she talked to fill the silence. Carla found herself explaining what each device did, how it worked, why she was using it. She did not know if the creature could understand her, but talking felt right. When the first light of dawn crept through the crystal curtain, the creature's breathing had steadied. Its scales had regained some of their shine. It was not healthy, not yet, but it was no longer dying. Carla leaned back against the cave wall, exhausted and filthy and happier than she had been in 3 years. She had found something amazing, something that would change everything. She just did not know yet how much. The dragon child closed its eyes and slept, surrounded by human tools, wrapped in a human blanket. Alive because a human had chosen to stay. Outside, the rust-colored sky brightened with the promise of a new day. And somewhere in the distance, Carla heard the sound of approaching footsteps. Her crew was coming. The next chapter was about to begin. But for now, in this moment, there was only the cave, the sleeping creature, and the woman who had refused to let it die. Danny Valdez was the first to reach the cave. He was the chief engineer of the Callisto Dawn, a big man with rough hands and a gentle heart. He had known Carla for 2 years now, and when her beacon had gone off in the middle of the night, he had not waited for orders. He had grabbed his gear and started walking. He found her sitting in a cave full of crystals, covered in ash, with a dragon in her lap. Danny stopped at the entrance and stared. He had seen many strange things in his years of space travel. Alien plants that sang, rocks that moved on their own, moons made entirely of ice. But he had never seen anything like this. The creature was beautiful in a way that made his chest tight. It was also very clearly sick. "You should have called it in," he said. "I know," Carla replied. She did not look up. Her hands were busy adjusting the thermal blanket around the creature's body. "We cannot take it back to the ship." "I know." Danny stood there for a long moment. Then he sighed, set down his pack, and sat down across from her. "Tell me what you need," he said. That was how it started. Dr. Nina Okonkwo arrived an hour later. She was the expedition's xenobiologist, a small woman with sharp eyes and a mind that never stopped working. She had brought her portable lab with her, a case full of scanners and analyzers and tools that could tell her things about an organism that the organism did not even know about itself. She knelt beside the dragon child and began her work. The creature watched her with those golden eyes, but it did not move. It seemed to understand that she was trying to help. What Nina found made her go very still. "This is a juvenile," she said quietly. "A baby, in terms of its species. How can you tell?" Carla asked. Nina pointed to her scanner. "Growth patterns. Cellular development. This creature is very young, but its cells..." She paused, checking her readings again. "Its cells show a regeneration capability I have never seen before. This species could live for thousands of years, maybe tens of thousands." Danny let out a low whistle. So we found a baby dragon that might be older than human civilization. Not older, Nina corrected. This one is young. But its parents, its grandparents, they could have been alive when humans were still living in caves. The dragon child made a soft sound, almost like a purr. Its eyes moved between the three humans, watching, learning, remembering. More crew members arrived as the day went on. Kevin Park, the botanist, brought samples of every plant he had found on the planet. He laid them out in front of the creature, one by one, watching to see if it would respond to any of them. When he placed a small blue flower near its mouth, the creature ate it immediately. That one, Kevin said, making a note. That one is food. Maria Santos came next. She was the communications officer, a woman who had spent her life learning to understand things that did not want to be understood. She brought her translation equipment and sat near the dragon child for hours, recording every sound it made. "It is trying to talk to us," she said finally. "The sounds it makes are not random. There are patterns, repeating sequences. I think it has a language. Can you translate it?" Carla asked. Maria shook her head. "Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I can try." Night fell on Vareth 7. The crew had set up lights around the cave entrance, turning it into a small camp. Someone had brought food from the ship, and they ate together in the flickering glow, the dragon child sleeping peacefully in the center of their circle. Captain Gregory Hayes arrived just before midnight. He was an older man, gray at the temples, with the kind of face that had seen too much to be surprised by anything anymore. He stood at the cave entrance for a long time, looking at his crew, looking at the creature they had gathered around. "Report," he said finally. Nina gave him the scientific data. Danny explained the creature's condition. Maria shared her translation work. Kevin listed the foods the creature could eat. And Carla, speaking last, told him about finding the broken eggs, the dead siblings, the single survivor. Captain Hayes listened to all of it without interrupting. When they were finished, he walked into the cave and knelt beside the dragon child. The creature opened its eyes and looked at him. "Hello," the captain said softly. "I am sorry for your loss." The creature made a sound. It was low and musical, like wind through a pipe. And somehow, without any translation, everyone in the cave understood what it meant. Thank you. They stayed through the second night and into the third day. The dragon child grew stronger with each passing hour. It began to move around the cave, examining the human equipment with obvious curiosity. It touched things gently with its nose, turned them over with its claws, held them up to the light to see how they caught the glow. It was learning. That was what Nina realized on the morning of the third day. The creature was not just looking at their tools. It was studying them, understanding them. She watched as it picked up a broken piece of volcanic glass and tried to shape it, copying the movements it had seen Carla make when she fixed a loose connection on her scanner. "It is intelligent," Nina said. "Not animal intelligent. Not even primate intelligent. It is. It is like us." The words hung in the air of the cave. Like us. A species that could think, could learn, could create. A species that had been dying alone on a dead planet until a human woman sat down beside it and refused to let it go. Carla looked at the dragon child. It looked back at her with those golden eyes, and she saw something in them that she had not seen before. Not gratitude, not curiosity. Hope. The creature had hope now. It believed it might survive. And more than that, it believed it had found something worth surviving for. Outside the cave, the rust-colored sky was growing lighter. A new day was beginning on Vareth 7, and inside the cave, surrounded by humans and their strange tools, a dragon child took its first steps toward a future no one could have predicted. The long night was over, but the real story was only beginning. On the seventh day, The dragon child spoke that Maria Santos had been working on her translations for nearly a week. She had recorded thousands of sounds, mapped hundreds of patterns, fed everything into her computer, and asked it to find meaning in the noise. The machine had done its best, but languages were not just about sounds. They were about context, about feeling, about the way a creature thought. Maria was sitting in the cave, listening to her recordings for the 100th time, when the dragon child walked over to her and made a series of soft clicks and whistles. The translator on Maria's belt crackled, and then, in a voice that sounded like bells ringing underwater, it said, "Your machine speaks wrong. I will help." Maria dropped her notebook. The dragon child, who they had started calling Kira because it was the closest human sound to what she called herself, sat down in front of Maria and began to teach. She made sounds, pointed to objects, and waited for Maria to understand. Within an hour, the translator was working better than it ever had before. Within 2 hours, Kira was having her first real conversation with a human. "I was waiting," Kira said, "in the long sleep. My people sleep when there is nothing to wake for. We can sleep for many, many cycles. But the fire mountains woke, and my mother put us in the shells to protect us. She said to wait. She said help would come." "Your mother," Carla said softly. "Where is she now?" Kira was quiet for a long moment. Her scale shifted color, growing darker. "The others came first. Before you. They had ships like yours, metal that flew through the sky. We thought they were the help my mother promised. But they were not." The crew exchanged glances. Others. There had been others. What did they do? Captain Hayes asked. "They looked at us," Kira said. "They saw us and they were afraid. We are large when we are grown. We have fire in our bellies and claws that can cut stone. They saw weapons. They saw danger. They did not see people." She stood up and walked to the cave entrance, looking out at the ash fields beyond. Her wings rustled against her back. "When the fire mountains woke, they left. They had machines that could have helped us. They had tools that could have saved us. But they took everything and flew away. They left us to burn." The silence in the cave was heavy. Danny Valdez, who had not said much in days, finally spoke. "How many of your people survived?" "Some," Kira said. "Deep in the ground in the oldest sleeping places. They are still there. Still sleeping. Waiting for a reason to wake." She turned back to face the humans. "I was too small to go to the deep places. My mother put me here, in this small cave, hoping the fire would not reach. It almost did. My brothers and sisters." She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Carla stood up and walked to Kira's side. She did not try to touch her, did not try to offer comfort with words. She just stood there, close enough that Kira could feel she was not alone. "We are not like them," Carla said. "The ones who left you." "I know," Kira replied. "I have been watching you. For many days now. You could have taken things from this place. The crystals at the cave entrance are valuable, yes? Your machines tell you so. But you did not take them. You stayed with me instead. You were hurt," Carla said simply. "You needed help." Kira made a sound that the translator could not interpret. It was something between a laugh and a sigh. "That is what makes you different. The others saw us and thought, what can we take? You saw me and thought, what can we give?" Over the next few days, Kira grew stronger. She began to walk around the camp, examining everything the humans had brought. She watched Danny repair a broken power cell and asked him questions until she understood how it worked. She sat with Kevin as he tested soil samples and learned the names of nutrients and minerals. She listened to Maria explain how human language worked and compared it to her own tongue. But it was the tools that fascinated her most. Humans. Kira learned were not strong. They could not fly. They could not breathe fire or survive extreme heat. Their scales were soft, their claws were dull, their teeth were small. By every measure that Kira's people would use, humans were weak, and yet they had crossed the stars. They had done it with tools, with machines, with the things they built using their clever hands and their restless minds. Where Kira's people slept and waited, humans worked and created. Where dragons dreamed of the past, humans built toward the future. Kira picked up Carla's multi-tool one afternoon and turned it over in her claws. It was a simple thing, really. A blade, a light, a few other attachments. Nothing impressive by itself. With this, Kira said, you can cut and light your way and fix things that are broken. It is just a tool, Carla said. We have millions of them. Exactly. Kira's eyes were bright with something new. Understanding. Wonder. You have millions of them. My people have fire and claws and strength that could crush mountains. But we sleep for centuries while the world changes around us. You make tools, and with those tools, you make more tools. And with those tools, you make ships that fly between the stars. She set the multi-tool down carefully, almost reverently. When I return to my people, Kira said, I will tell them about this. I will tell them about the humans who found a dying child and used their tools to save her. I will tell them that there is another way to live. Not sleeping and dreaming of what was, but building and working toward what could be. Carla felt tears prick at her eyes, though she could not have explained exactly why. Will they listen? Kira spread her wings. They were fully healed now, beautiful and strong. They will listen, she said, because I will make sure they do. The awakening had begun, not just for Kira, but for her entire species. And humans, without knowing it, had started something that would echo across 1,000 worlds. Word spread quickly after that. The discovery of intelligent life was supposed to be one of humanity's greatest moments, and now it was happening on a small volcanic planet at the edge of known space. Messages flew back and forth between the Callisto Dawn and Earth. Scientists wanted data. Politicians wanted statements. Reporters wanted stories. But on Vareth 7, far from all the noise, something quieter was happening. Something more important. Kira was teaching. She started with Dr. Nina Okonkwo. One morning, Kira led the xenobiologists to a field of plants that Nina had marked as toxic in her surveys. The plants had bright red leaves and sharp thorns, and every test Nina had run suggested they would kill any creature that ate them. Kira picked one of the leaves and ate it. Nina jumped forward, her medical scanner already in her hand, but Kira just made that laughing sound again. Not poison, she said. Medicine. My people have used these for thousands of cycles. They clean the blood, make the body strong. You must dry them first in the sun, then crush them and mix with water. Nina stared at the plant, then at her scanner, then at Kira. My equipment said it was toxic. Your equipment does not know everything, Kira replied. That is why you have me. It went on like that for weeks. Kira had knowledge that humans could barely imagine. She showed Danny a way to store energy in crystals that made his engines look like children's toys. She sang songs to Maria that contained mathematical formulas humans had only theorized about. She drew maps in the ash that showed the locations of mineral deposits, so rich they would have taken human sensors years to find. And in return, the humans taught her. Kevin Park spent hours explaining how humans grew food in controlled environments. He showed her pictures of farms on Earth, of hydroponic systems on space stations, of greenhouses on Mars. Kira was amazed that a species so short-lived could have learned to control the growth of plants so completely. We had to, Kevin explained. We are not like you. We cannot sleep for centuries and wait for good times. We have to make the good times ourselves. Kira thought about this for a long while. "That is why you build so much," she said finally. "You do not have time to wait. So you make time work for you instead." Captain Hayes spent an evening telling Kira about human history. He did not hide the bad parts. He told her about wars and genocides, about slavery and cruelty, about all the times humanity had nearly destroyed itself through stupidity and greed. Kira listened to it all without interrupting. When he was finished, she asked a question that Hayes had not expected. "But you are still here," she said. "After all of that, you survived." "Yes," Hayes admitted, "though sometimes I do not know how." "I know how," Kira said. "It is the same reason you saved me. You do not give up. Even when everything is burning, even when the world is falling apart, you keep trying. You keep building. You keep reaching for something better." She tilted her head, looking at him with those ancient eyes. "My people sleep through hard times. We wait for the fire to pass. But you run into the fire. You try to put it out. That is why you survived. And that is why you will keep surviving, long after other species have faded away." Hayes did not know what to say to that. He was not sure anyone would. The night before Kira was scheduled to leave, the whole crew gathered in the cave. Someone had brought food from the ship, the good stuff that they saved for special occasions. Someone else had brought music, soft and strange, from a dozen different worlds humanity had visited. They sat in a circle, humans and dragon, and they talked. Kira told them stories of her people. She described cities that had stood for 100,000 years, built by creatures who could shape stone with their bare claws. She spoke of songs that took a century to sing, of dances that only made sense when viewed from the sky, of love that lasted longer than human civilizations. And the humans told her their stories. Stories of Earth, of blue oceans and green forests, of a moon that filled the night sky. Stories of the first ships that left that world, of the courage it took to fly into nothing and hope to find something. Stories of all the little moments that made human life worth living. Children laughing, friends reuniting, strangers helping strangers for no reason at all. "I will remember all of this," Kira said when the stories were done. "I will tell my people everything you have told me. And when they wake, when they come out of the deep places and see the stars again, they will know that they are not alone." Carla reached out and, for the first time, touched Kira's scales. They were warm, almost hot, and smooth as polished metal. "Will we see you again?" "Yes," Kira said. "You will see me again, and you will see my people. We will find you wherever you go, and we will remember what you did here. Not the big things. Not the ships or the tools or the machines. We will remember the small things. The water you gave me when I was dying. The blanket you wrapped around me in the cold. The way you sat with me through the long night, even though you did not know if I would live." She spread her wings, filling the cave with their shadow. "My people do not forget," she said. "We live too long for forgetting. And so, for as long as we exist, humans will have friends among the stars." The crew of the Callisto Dawn did not sleep that night. They stayed awake until dawn, talking and laughing and crying, making memories that would last them the rest of their lives. And when morning came, they watched Kira fly away into the rust-colored sky, growing smaller and smaller until she disappeared over the horizon. She was going to wake her people. She was going to tell them everything. The telling had begun. 1 year passed. On Earth, the story of Kira and the crew of the Callisto Dawn had become something close to legend. Children grew up hearing about the dragon child found in a cave, about the humans who stayed through the long night, about the promise of friendship that had been made beneath an alien sky. Movies were made. Books were written. Songs were sung. But for Carla Simmons, the story was not finished. It would never be finished until she saw Kira again. She had been promoted twice since returning to Earth. She had given speeches to crowds of thousands, shaken hands with presidents and prime ministers, seen her face on screens in every corner of the world. None of it felt real. All of it felt like something that was happening to someone else, someone she did not recognize. The only thing that felt real was the memory of sitting in a cave, holding a dying creature, refusing to give up. When the message came that the Callisto Dawn was returning to Vareth 7, Carla did not hesitate. She requested a place on the mission. She was told that a junior officer no longer had any business going on serving missions. She made the request again, and again, and again, until finally someone with enough authority got tired of saying no. The journey took 3 months. Carla spent most of it in her quarters, looking at old photographs, reading the reports they had filed, remembering every moment of those few weeks. That had changed her life. When the ship finally entered orbit around Vareth 7, the crew gathered at the viewing windows. What they saw made them forget how to breathe. The planet had changed. The ash fields were still there, gray and quiet under the rust-colored sky. But rising from those fields, visible even from space, were structures. Towers of crystal and stone, gleaming in the dim light. Roads that wound between them like silver ribbons. And in the sky, shapes that looked like birds, but were far too large to be birds. Dragons. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. Flying in formation over their new city. "They are awake," Danny Valdez whispered. He had come back too, along with Nina and Kevin and Maria and Captain Hayes. All of them had come back, as if they had known somehow that they needed to be here. The shuttle descended through clouds of ash and heat. Carla sat near the window, her heart beating so fast she thought it might burst. She did not know what to expect. A year was nothing to a species that lived for millennia. Would Kira even remember her? Would any of them? The shuttle landed at the edge of the new city. The doors opened, and Carla was the first to step out. Kira was waiting for her dot. She was huge now. When Carla had last seen her, Kira had been the size of a large dog. Now she stood nearly 12 feet tall, her scales deepened to a rich purple that seemed to swallow the light. Her wings, when she spread them, blocked out the sky. Her eyes, though, had not changed. They were still gold, still flecked with darker spots that moved and shifted, still filled with that intelligence that had taken Carla's breath away in a small cave a year ago. "I told them you would come back," Kira said. Her voice was deeper now, resonant with age and power, but the words that the translator produced were the same as always. They did not believe me. "Humans are so small," they said. "So fragile. They cannot cross the stars just to see friends. But I knew you would come." Carla tried to speak. She could not. Her throat was too tight. Behind Kira, arranged in careful rows that stretched all the way to the crystal towers, stood the dragons. Hundreds of them, in every color Carla could imagine, and some she could not. They were ancient, beautiful, and terrifying. And every single one of them was looking at the small group of humans who had just stepped off the shuttle. Kira turned to face her people and spoke in her own language. The sounds were deep and musical, echoing off the towers, carried by the wind across the ash fields. Carla did not need the translator to know what she was saying. She could feel it in the way the dragon's eyes changed, in the way they held themselves, in the way the whole world seemed to go still and listen. She was telling them the story. When she was finished, the dragons did something that made Carla's knees go weak. They bowed. Every single one of them lowered their great heads to the ground, wings folded, tails still. 1,000 creatures that could crush mountains, breathe fire, live forever, bowing to a handful of humans who had done nothing more than refuse to let a child die. "They know now," Kira said, turning back to Carla. "They know what you did for me. They know what you gave when others took. and they will never forget. Carla finally found her voice. We just did what was right. Yes, Kira agreed. And that is why it matters. Anyone can do what is easy. Anyone can take what they want and leave. But you stayed. You gave. You cared. She reached out with one massive claw and touched Carla's shoulder, so gently that Carla barely felt it. My people have seen many species rise and fall across the stars. Most of them are forgotten now, nothing but dust and memory. But humans will be remembered. As long as we live, you will be remembered. The dragons rose from their bow and began to move. They spread out across the ash fields, returning to their towers and their work and their lives. But as they passed the humans, each one paused for just a moment. Each one made a small sound, different from the others, but carrying the same meaning. Thank you. Carla stood there until the last dragon had passed. Then she sat down in the ash, right there on the edge of an alien city, and she cried. She cried for the child she had saved and the creature that child had become. She cried for all the years ahead, all the possibilities opened up by one small act of kindness. She cried because the universe was vast and cold and empty. But somehow, in the middle of all that nothing, something beautiful had happened. Kira sat down beside her, careful not to crush her with her enormous body. They stayed like that for a long time, human and dragon, watching the sun set over a world that had changed forever, and across the galaxy, on 100 worlds that had not yet heard the story, children looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. They did not know it yet, but they would find out. They would find friends waiting for them, ancient and powerful and grateful, because a dragon child had slept beside a human's tools. And by morning, myths had begun.